All right, everybody, welcome back to the Kleen-Rite Radio podcast. I'm Fix It with Phil, and as always, I'm joined by my good buddy, Mark Tentis. Mark, how we feeling today?
It's a great Monday. I feel great. The sun's out. We have a great guest today, Mark Tentis from OPW, the Vice President of Sales.
Yeah.
We're going to talk a little bit about IBA. We're going to talk about touch-free. We're going to talk about friction. Mark, how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Can you just give us a little rundown of who's Mark Tentis and what's OPW do?
Sure. Well, I've been in the car wash business for about 26 years now. Some of those operators out there that knew PDQ early on. I started in the business as a tunnel sales manager for touch-free full service tunnels. Well, there's not many of those being built anymore.
Yeah.
I can say that. We quickly moved into, the IBA automatic side of the business, and I've, covered every region of the country and a little bit of international as well for PDQ. And then as we started to acquire some of the other companies like Belanger in Michigan, Transchem chemistry for solutions, and then ICS for payment terminals out of Pennsylvania as well. So a lot of industry experience there, and across a lot of different portfolio companies.
Well, you guys, great partner with Kleen-Rite. We really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And a wealth of knowledge, and it's really helped us. So today we're going to talk. We want to focus on, most of our listeners are self-serve IBA listeners, most of them. I don't want to say all of them, but we want to talk about, hey, I want to put an IBA in my self-serve, or I already have an IBA and I want to replace it. What's the decision-making process?
I think just as we roll into that, that's something that I've found very, very interesting here of late, is that if you ask most people in this industry, when you picture a self-serve car wash, what do you think of? Right? You're thinking about hand bays and IBAs together, right? That is the average picture of a self-serve car wash. It has an automatic machine. So that's why this conversation's so important.
Yeah.
Is because, not everybody thinks that way, but I believe that the industry needs to start to think that way.
So people call all the time, a lot of times off the podcast, and they just bought a 4-bay self-serve, and they're doing X, and they're like, I want to fix up my self-serve, but if you put an IBA in, you can double, triple what you're doing in self-serve, and they're not even thinking like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
and I'm glad you brought that this
up.
conversation sparks that thought process for people out there, and they start thinking a little bigger than what they're actually, imagining they can do.
Yeah, it's a great source for passive income for these operators that come from the self-serve perspective. Very little labor is required at these sites compared to the other grand sites that are out there now. Mm-hmm. So the IBA automatic market has stayed very consistent for the past 26 years that I've been in it as well.
Yeah, it's a great entry into new but you're right. When we sit and talk and we just say self-serve, we're just assuming there's an IBA with self-serve
automatically.
But there's still a lot of people who are like, no, self-serve's different. No, self-serve is part of IBA.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great point.
So, as before I interrupted Mark, that
was the first interruption.
We were starting to dive into, IBAs and, friction versus touchless. If you could just open us up into that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. A lifelong debate there. What's better? Which way should I go? It has some regional consequences too, I think, out there and preferences out there. But I think, from a touch-free perspective, which, PDQ has been known for with the laser wash for a long time, there's really 3 good customer perceptions within a touch-free. And number one, of course, is, hey, we're not touching the vehicle. Mm-hmm. There's no physically touching the vehicle with the brushes, and one of the new things that has come up too is we believe it's safer for the electric vehicles, the sensors, the cameras, et cetera. And right now, when you go into it, most of the touch-frees out there, it's a wide open base, so very inviting to get in there. It's easy to get in there. You can wash dualies in most of them. So much larger vehicles, and last year in the vehicle side of things, 83% of all vehicles sold were either a light truck or an SUV. So vehicles are getting bigger in North America, particularly. The thing you hear a lot about on how touch-free has gotten better over the years, really it's within the advancements within the chemistry that they've done. It's been a big differentiator. You got a real good, everybody's coming with new better alkaline pre-soaks to put on the vehicle, and then they're doing the two-step as well, doing a high-low pH on there to, increase the surfactants and lift that dirt off of the vehicle, and then hitting it with high pressure. Big differentiator there, I think, too, is from friction, is touch-free is going to cost you a little more in terms of chemistry that you do use on a vehicle compared to a friction machine, but it's not touching the vehicle, so your maintenance is usually less than what would be a friction machine too. So they kind of offset each other there. I usually tell people, if what's better if I have a black vehicle, I want to use a touch-free piece of equipment. I don't care how good your foam is on your friction machine, you're going to leave fine scratches in that clear coat eventually. Now you can buff them out as well, but it's much more pronounceable in those the black vehicle right now.
Yeah, and it's not easy to explain to your customer that at some point using my car wash, you're going to have to buff that out.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult decision or a difficult conversation. Now, some of the chemistry does help that. The new ceramics and graphenes, they kind of fill those fine scratches. And as I always say, I tell people this a lot of times, and Mark, you'd remember it. Maybe you will, Phil, but touch-free washing really came about in the late '80s, and what happened there was, beforehand, you went to fill up at a gas station, you got your car wash for free at the filling station, and the car wash there had all the bristle brushes on it.
You might have to tell Phil what a filling station is, because that's a term that's only...
Yeah. that might have been a long time before my time.
So that's, you're getting into the late '80s there, and then soon after that, the auto manufacturers changed their paint process. It wasn't the lead-based paints anymore. You started coming with the acrylic clear coats, and you took that acrylic clear coat through one of those bristle brushes. Yeah, it didn't shine so much anymore. So the technology's changed at that time, and that's really when touch-free washing took off hard in the industry. Now, I would say that on the petroleum side of the business, friction is still king. They do use friction quite often there, with the exception, I would say, of the northern provinces, with Canada and stuff. They still use a lot of touch-free up in, the snow belt areas.
Go ahead.
Go.
Okay. And so I would say since the early '70s, I mean, it has cycled, right? I've seen it cycle. So friction was very strong. And then touch-free got really hot in the '80s. And then what was about maybe 2005, 2007, friction really came back on again. And now I see touch-free kind of swinging back the other way, for just the independent self-serve operators, like myself or Phil.
And the big change there was that closed-cell polyurethane foam that they went to on the friction machine versus cloth or the bristles. So, very, very soft touch to the vehicle. So
it launched the confidence for IBA or self-serves to put friction machines back in that they've had that they took out 15 years previous.
And is that just in the competition stage of keeping up with expresses, having that friction machine at their wash? Was that the answer to, hey, we can do that too? Or
Yeah, and I think it's the frequency of washers. I mean, if you're not washing, once a week or something similar to that, it's hard. It can be very difficult to clean in a touch-free environment where brushes are doing the work on a friction machine, and you can wash once every 4 weeks and get a very positive result.
So with that statement, right? I'm a car wash owner. I'm trying to decide what machine to put in. What are some of the major things that I need to look at when I'm trying to make that decision, do you believe, on whether to put a friction machine in or to put a touchless machine in?
My preference was you put both in, but
well,
very fair.
Some of us do give people a choice.
Yeah.
It's a good, it's a good business model.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good business model, and I'm in most of the friction machines too now really are, wash a vehicle as a hybrid. So they have a high pressure function
Mhm.
within their system or within one of the passes. Like I said, I'm a big fan of doing a double bay, one side friction and one side touch free, and let the consumer, determine what they want to do. And some operators or some manufacturers have tried to do it within a single machine. It's difficult. It's more difficult. It's very complex. The machine can be, and it kind of confuses the consumer who's coming to get his car washed.
Yeah.
Do I choose touch free or do I choose friction?
But if you could only fit one, what are some of the deciding factors that you believe an operator should
Yep.
look at?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm not going to be on site, 24/7 and watching those machines, my choice is touch free.
Yeah.
Easily.
I sold a few, IBAs in my time, and people used to ask me, and I said, what you really need to do is ask yourself these couple questions. Exactly what you said, Mark. If you're hands off and you're not going to be paying as much, maybe you're paying attention to the chemical, which you have to with touch free. But if you're looking for like that no headache passive income, you probably are a touch free guy. If you're a multi-site operator who's maximizing revenue and you want to give all your customers all the options, you probably want to have that double bay where you have a touch free and a soft touch.
Right.
It's really looking at yourself when you look at that decision. Yeah.
So, I mean, am I hearing that is everybody's consensus at the moment that if you have a touchless machine, it's a passive income, and if you have a friction machine, that is not a passive income in the sense of you need to spend more time on site with that machine watching it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say you need to spend more time on site with watching it, but you're probably going to see, some increase in damage claims compared to the touch free, and things. If you don't have the cameras in the bay, at that point in time, now who do you believe? Was it broke before it came in, or was it, or did the wash process, take a mirror off here or windshield wiper here?
Mm-hmm.
So those are things to consider, and you just don't have those issues within the touch-free environment.
Yeah, for sure. The soft touch machines, and I fall victim to this. Sometimes you pay stuff you didn't do.
Yeah,
exactly.
Just to move on, and I'm not going to fight every claim. We don't pay a lot of claims.
Well, and if you keep the customer happy and they're going to come back, you'll get your money back out of that fix. And, everybody's happy. You get a good Google review off of it, whatever that looks like, right? And it's, I hate to be that guy, but in my opinion, it's the right thing to do, even though you know that you're not in the wrong, but sometimes you just have to let the other side win.
Yeah, bite the bullet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think these investors have a great opportunity up against some of the the massive chains of express tunnels too, to come in and use a branded chemistry on the site. Get their local people really familiar with their processes, and feel good about coming to the wash and adding in license plate recognition and or RFID type of a subscription system to the MBA automatics as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
we say it all the time. Our best operators are having their best years, and we talk about this constantly. The express car washes really did us a favor and got people out of the driveway.
Yep.
People tried them all, and a lot of people liked them, but also it kicked a lot of the people that they brought into the professional car washing, kicked them back to us. So that's why a lot of the best operators are having their best years. If you have a nice location and you have a good IBA and at a fair price, you're probably doing okay right now if you're around a bunch of express tunnels.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, we haven't seen many closures.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I think we're seeing the opposite, right? We're having a major upswing of people buying old sites and redoing them and putting machines in if there wasn't a machine there, all those types of things. Like, people are seeing the writing on the wall and they're getting on board. And I think, this conversation hopefully can help people understand that better, that it it's time, it's available, and you can do it and be very successful at it.
Let's talk about one reason, and I know I had a lot of customers and myself get into friction is water usage. Water usage became a big issue the last 2 decades, decade and a half. Talk a little bit, Mark, about the difference between the water usage between the soft touch and the touch free.
Yeah, I mean, it in most cases it can be very similar in terms of water usage because you still have to wet the brushes on a friction machine and keep them constantly wet. The perception is that a touch-free uses a lot more water because you see the high pressure rinse function. But there's a lot of things that go into that as well. There's some variable frequency drives where you can, change the pump pressure on different passes. So you're not using, high pressure on every pass by any means. There's a lot of low pressure passes there that come through, which you use very, very little water. And you can control the speed of those passes as well versus, having one constant speed there. So I haven't seen, a dramatic difference between, water usage between, a friction machine and a touch-free machine. And both of them now, I think we talked a little bit earlier about reclaim. Both of them handle reclaim very well. If required by the municipalities in whatever city you're in. So you can reduce the water usage, significantly doing that on all your on the passes that are non, cleaning priorities for you.
Okay. Oh, good answer to that.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, you weren't thinking that way.
No, I'm actually really surprised by that. In my head, you were not able to use as much reclaim on a friction machine just due to the hazard of particles within the water itself.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the old oil companies used to just use a water soil separator. So they were bringing through particles that were, 100 to 150 size wise through the microns through that separator, where if you're using something on a lot of the touch-free machines, especially if, whatever pump you're using, and you're looking at, you want 5 to 10 microns at the max at that point in time.
Well, what if you had, Mark, anybody's soft touch machine and you didn't have any high pressure options on it and you're just doing, your brush lube and your rinses? There has to be a way that you could get a differential, I would think, between a touch free and that soft touch, a very basic soft touch.
Yeah. I mean, there is. I mean, if you're using city water pressure, definitely there's going to be a difference in the water usage there. But like I said, even if it's a 3-brush or a 5-brush machine, to properly wash the vehicle and have those brushes touching the vehicle, you need to be wetting them on every pass.
Yeah.
Keeping them wet. So it takes water. It's slower, but it still uses a fair amount of water.
Yeah. And any idea, like high level, the difference between a touch free and a soft touch with no high pressure on it, what the average gallons per an average car is? I mean, we used to throw numbers around, but do we not do that anymore? I mean, I don't know if I do, but
it's very hard to say because it all depends on the setup of your wash.
Okay.
I mean, you could use as little as 30 gallons on a touch-free wash for the basic wash package. And without reclaim, and if you're using reclaim there, you can get it down in the 15 to 20 gallon range. But again, it's all how you set it up, the speeds and everything there. Friction can be very similar. It can be down as low as 20 gallons a wash cycle and as high as 60 as well. So
okay,
fair enough.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
So this might be a little curveball question for you, but in your experience over your time in the industry, what is the standard ROI that you've seen on somebody that doesn't have a machine that takes the jump, puts the machine in? What's that typically look like, or have you seen?
Yeah, and again, that's going to vary by site and demographics. So you'd like to do a little pro forma on the site prior to telling people that. But typically on a good MBA automatic site, that already has maybe some service traffic there. The self-serve bays are operational. They kind of build the site back up and give it a little refresh. I think importantly too is the pay station you put in front of it.
Okay.
And, how many methods you give people to pay, whether they're going to use cash, credit, app, or any type of a subscription service. So all of that is going to affect your ROI, but I'd like to see the ROI somewhere between that, when you put in a new one into an existing site, somewhere between 2 and 3 years.
Yeah, which is great, right?
Wow.
Right.
It was always a pet peeve of mine. People would spend, you're talking 6 figures for a new IBA today, no problem, right? It used to be 5, but it's up there, and they'd put this brand new sparkling laser or whatever IBA in. They wouldn't refresh their doors or their pay station at the time, or their bay walls or their lights. And to me, to get that ROI quicker, you have to do it all. Mm-hmm. And I just personally can't stand when you put a modern 2026 IBA in with a circa 1999 pay station. It makes absolute no sense to me.
Yep. And a lot of people do it.
A lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear the comment, to get your ROI faster, you have to spend more, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
It kind of sounds a little bit backwards, but
sounds like we're cray-cray.
But I agree with Mark. It absolutely makes sense when you give the customer that sense of confidence with all brand new things that they're seeing and experiencing and interacting with. It makes them want to use it more.
Yeah. And I can't say enough, and I know it doesn't add to the cleaning of the vehicle, but LED lights are huge.
Mm-hmm.
Putting a little bit of a show in that bay makes all the difference in the world for the consumers.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, people get bored really quick.
Yep.
And if you can keep their brain entertained for the 5 minutes that they're in your bay and they leave stimulated and happy, right?
They're going to come back.
Well, and one of my favorite things I started doing at the end of my distributor years was, selling people the canopies over the pay stations.
Right.
They're not, the foundation's not cheap, the canopy's not cheap, but it looks really professional to, put a canopy with a nice light under it, block the sun a little bit from the touch screen, and at the same time update your menu sign. That's an inexpensive, and we talk all the time about price confidence. If you're doing this, have the price confidence to charge what you need to charge.
Well, you should have the price confidence when you're spending the money that it takes to do a project like that. You should have the price confidence. You should feel good about the work you did.
Yeah, and feel comfortable knowing that it's not all about volume. It's about average ticket price for those cars coming through. You don't need to wash 1,000 cars a day.
I love that statement.
No, you don't.
I absolutely love that statement.
Yeah, so what options, what revenue generating options can you give your consumers in that 5-6 minutes you have them in the bay, and then you can charge more for it.
I do want to jump back into something that you said earlier, and the word was regional. So in that word itself, let's talk about how to choose a machine. Just if we could break down the U.S. into 4 segments, 5 segments, however you want to do that.
Yeah. So in the snow belt region, touch-free is definitely much more popular in those regions. It's just so much easier to clean when you get the salt on the vehicle and using, the touch-free environment there. And, you get some areas up into like the Pacific Northwest where, they still stud tires out there in the wintertime. So you get that road film from those studded tires on your vehicles, and you really don't want to touch them with a friction or
interesting
some foam on there
without a really good prep pass or
exactly.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and it really sticks to the vehicle more than you would, and we see it up in the Scandinavian countries as well. Where they're they in the wintertime there, they very seldom see the light. So the road's never dry,
Yeah.
So that stuff is just stuck onto the vehicle. And if you try to scrub it off of there, you're going to do, a little more damage to the vehicle without a really good.
There's a lot of touch frees in like Alaska and Western Canada too, right?
Yeah, and it's very common in those markets too that, the first pass in the wintertime is just a warm-up pass of the vehicle. So you're doing a high pressure pass around the vehicle so you can apply chemistry to it because it's coming in at such a temperature that you try to put the pre-soak on, it's going to freeze on the vehicle almost.
Oh.
We talked another time, I don't want to get you off the regional thing, but we talked another time about operators using hot water in the touch freeze. I mean, that was big back in the 60s when hot water was free. It's not
Tempering the water is hot water cleans better,
Yeah. Yeah, but most guys heat their pre-soak or try to heat their pre-soak, but when we were talking, you were like, they're heating the wash water.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is it.
Which isn't much different than some of the operators that actually heat their dryer air,
Mm-hmm.
It's expensive, but you can produce a much better vehicle as well.
So I'm going to divert back to the regional thing. And so I heard you say about road film, from like the wetter areas, the snow belt, stuff like that. What is there to consider for like an agricultural area, a heavy farm area where there's a lot of dust bowl scenario going on? Is that another area where the friction is?
Typically, we do very well in the touch free does very well in those types of areas as well. And the other thing that kind of goes hand in hand with that is many of the overhead touch free machines can handle a large farm truck, like a dually or an F-350 type of size vehicle, where most of a lot of the friction machines have the gantry style machine on it, so it's very difficult to get you can't get the dually in there.
Mm-hmm.
But even regular half-ton pickup truck can be also difficult. So touch free has been in the rural communities has been very very big.
Okay. Yeah, in the rural areas, sometimes they have more attachments on their cars, like antennas, or back in our day, CB radios.
Yep.
What's a CB radio?
You don't know?
What are you guys talking about? Is that a weird cell phone?
Kind of like your cell phone,
Yeah.
Well, so let's move down to like Texas is kind of dusty, but where you live, you've got bugs, right? So that's
yeah.
Totally.
So Texas is predominantly a friction market. For a very long time was touch free as well, and that they'd kind of gradually come back to the friction side of the business with mainly because of the closed cell urethane foam. Being a great wash material.
Yeah, it really is.
So but we still do a fair amount of touch free equipment there. You still see a lot of touch free equipment there. Majority of those tend to be with self-serve operators as well, for the reasons we talked about earlier. That they don't want to deal with any of the damage claims out there.
Mm-hmm. And then what do we have left? We have the southeast and the north, the northeast. What do you think there?
Yeah, you look at the southeast, pretty good mixture there of both touch free and friction. So no real prevalence to either one of them. So more of an operator choice there. That what his demographics look like.
Mm-hmm.
But a trick question though, if you go to Europe.
Yeah, completely different state there.
It's like 90% touch, right?
Yeah, there it's 90% three brush rollover. Dominated by the major oil companies in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So large RFP type sales processes that go on. So very much different market. In the Northeast is a pretty good split as well of touch free and friction. Probably more there than anywhere in the country there where we see the touch free bay next to the friction bay, and then 3 or 4 bays of self service there. And then as you look at the petroleum companies in that region, they've historically stayed friction or moved to friction over the years as well. Just better, they feel a better cleaning process for them.
We've always been called an outlier in the Northeast.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a nice way of saying it, right?
What do you believe the thought process should be as a part of the regional thing? What the thought process should be for somebody that's changing out a machine or putting a new machine in? in what's around them, right? How much should they consider, there's an express down the street, they have brushes, or, there's within 10, 15 miles, there's 5 different touchless machines. I'm going to put a brush machine in, weigh in on that a little bit.
Yeah, I think those all come into play. What's your competition? And I think for a lot of the existing sites that have been out there, they've all seen an influx of express tunnels over the last 10 years. So how do you differentiate yourself in the marketplace is the way I look at it. And I think one of them is you evaluate, okay, everything around me is friction. There's only a couple of touch frees. They're maybe not so good. I'm going to go with the touch free. And then I think, you take it to that second level of, using some branded chemistry in there, something that the consumer is going to notice rather than, what the other guys are using out there right now, because everybody else wants to develop their own brand on the chemistry. But there's some great brand names out there for chemistry. And then I think, you look at, how much involvement you want to have with the business, and how far you want to take your reload or your remodel to. I think that has a big influence on what my decision would be. Some of the, top line friction machines are pretty expensive right now compared to touch-free machines, So those are, just general decisions, that I think each operator needs to make.
Well, I was thinking about this last night because I knew we were having this podcast, and people will ask us the questions all the time at seminars. I just don't know how to pay for this. And really, if you think about this, if you already own a car wash for 2 or 3 years, you're not a bank risk for the most point. And the robot, the touch free, it'll pay for itself.
Right.
I mean, you might have to get a loan to get it in, but it will pay for itself, and you will make money on top of that. And I think for people that just have 4 bays of self-serve, it's a harder hurdle for them. For a guy that already had an IBA and it was successful, it's easy to replace machines. He'll replace them when they wear out. And for that guy that let his machine go over the years, he also sometimes will need a little boost of confidence to understand how he can.
Well, it hasn't been doing great. Well, it hasn't been doing great because you haven't been taking care of it.
Yeah, people don't want to go through it.
Yeah.
But if you get with a good distributor, like one of your distributors, they will walk people through the pro forma. They'll map it out to help them with provide financing. They will show them how to make money.
Yeah. There's some good financing companies out there that really are very specific to car washing as well. So, and they understand the highs and lows of the business as well. So they're, especially if you've been in business for 3-4 years, they're willing to work with you on it.
Yeah, and if you look at some of the pro formas, the break even for a new touch free machine when you add your renovation cost, your electrician, your plumber, really not a high daily count just for the break even. It's actually surprisingly low, with a modern price structure.
Right.
Yeah. So, what else you got, Phil?
Well, that's what I'm sitting here and
you're thinking.
I am.
His brain is cooking.
Mark, you've said a bunch of things here today that really have me sparked up, really thinking about this whole discussion. We have a site that we're looking to here in the next couple months, possibly put another machine in. And we've been internally going back and forth between the group and do we go friction? Do we go touchless? We already have a touchless machine. But the biggest thing I'm hanging on to that you're saying is you said 3 or 4 times now during this discussion is this branded chemicals. And that can be a huge driving factor. Are you suggesting that gets promoted outside of the bay, saying, hey, we use X brand chemicals for everything that we do, and you think that is a large driving factor on getting people to come through and then to continue to come through?
Yeah, I really do. I mean, there's a reason, McDonald's sells Coke.
Yeah.
They don't have they could easily have developed their own,
True.
soda brand, over the years, and people go there for, partially because they have Coke products, you know. So I think that, it's very similar in the vehicle wash industry. People recognize, certain brands of chemistry that their dads used, that their grandpas used, I mean, and they are very attracted to that. They know they perceive the perception there is high quality.
Yeah. I've never heard the McDonald's Coke analogy before.
Yep.
And I'm pretty blown away by that at the moment, really, because I never thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been easy for them to do that.
Yeah, they could be making their own soda for years and years and years.
Right.
But they pay the price to Coke so that they have Coke. And that's,
I'm sure they've negotiated a pretty good deal.
Pretty well.
I'm sure.
But you hear the brand loyalty all the time. Every time you go to a restaurant and you ask for a Coke, they're like, "We're Pepsi products here."
And my immediate response is, "I'll take an iced tea."
Now Pepsi, we're not against you.
We're not beating on them yet.
Yeah, it's just not my choice.
Yeah, that's funny.
Hopefully this doesn't get pulled off the internet because of that.
Pepsi's we can edit that one out.
Yeah. No, we should leave it in there.
Yeah, I mean,
I like Pepsi, but I like Coke more.
Yeah, I'm a Coke Zero guy.
Oh boy.
I think this has been, honestly, I think this has been a great discussion. I love IBAs, and I love that, the new thought process behind what a self-serve image car wash truly is includes that machine, because I think anymore it almost needs to, especially if you want to move up in a tier, you want to get to that next level of operations, or you want to get to that next level of revenue. So I think the information that you gave us today, Mark, has really enlightened me a lot. And I'm sure that it will hopefully enlighten a lot of the viewers out there on, what the next steps are, how to get that thought process started on, is this the right thing for me to do? More than likely it is. What style machine should I get? I think sometimes that can be a big hurdle for people trying to understand what style machine they need. And then the small golden nuggets that you laid with the chemical branding and things like that, having that solid name out front, letting them know that you're using great products on their vehicle.
Right.
Wow.
Well, this was a very informative session, Mark. Thank you very much for joining us. I know you're a busy guy. It was not easy to get you on here, but we did. It was successful.
It was very successful.
That's good.
I would say before we finish up and close out here, because I can tell that's where this is headed. Mark, is there anything that you think a future IBA owner should know or should think about before they take the jump?
One specific thing I don't think really, there's a lot of decisions to be made, I think, there. And for me, the biggest thing for an IBA owner is that I don't want to have the labor to deal with, and this is the route I want to go. It's and you can make really good money owning a self-serve in-bay automatic car wash, and again, like I said earlier, it's not all about volume. At the end of the day, guys are maybe aren't washing cars because they love to wash cars. They're washing cars because they want to make money.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a great point.
I love it.
Yep.
Are you done now yet, Phil?
Now I am. Hey, when we get somebody on like this, I got to be a little.
I have one more question.
So I want to ask.
So we talk about this all the time, Mark. What do you think is going to happen in the IBA space, or soft touch or touch free? What is going to be that wow thing that's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years that people are not even really thinking about? Yeah, I mean, if you're working on something, you don't have to tell us about it. But is it going to be more robotic? Is it going to be easier to operate? I mean, there has to be something changing in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, you've probably both seen it. There's a few machines out there now that are a little bit robotics, but the return on investment just isn't there for them right now. I mean, I think that will get better with time going on. But, I often say there's, what's the next game changer in our industry?
Mhm.
And I would say, hey, can we do it without using water?
Oh,
The
wow.
water of the car wash.
Can we
Yeah.
do it without using chemistry?
Yeah.
Because those are your two biggest operating expenses right now. And if we can take those things out, I think you got something,
Ooh, maybe some innovation on some new material for brushes or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Or even within the chemistry of it.
Well, the car manufacturers have talked about this for years and they haven't figured it out.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure if the car wash mine tank will be able to or not. They're talking about different paints where the dirt just doesn't stick to it, electrostatic fields and all kinds of stuff. And it just never happened. So what are we going to do? Hopefully we're going to keep washing cars.
Well, we're going to keep washing cars.
That's
Not
the plan.
everybody can afford an electrostatic car. Come on now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Mark, I want to give you a big thank you for getting on with us and having this conversation. It's been really fun. It's been extremely informative for me. So I greatly appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys, and we'll probably see you here in a few weeks in Nashville at the ICA show.
I'm sure we will.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, that's going to close out this episode of the Kleen-Rite Radio podcast. Want to give a big thanks to Mark Tentis for joining us today and having the IBA conversations.
And don't forget, Phil, we're great partners with OPW. You can buy PDQ, Belanger, OEM parts right on Kleen-Rite website. It's been a fantastic partnership. He was a great guest today. This was one of our best sessions.
This was a great session. So please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have any ideas for episodes, leave them in the comments down below and we'll try to get to it.
Have a great day.